Yeah. Now we're live, Shane.
We're live. Now we're live.
That's it. Back. 2 hours of happiness.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at all the people in chat already.
Yeah, we got a bunch of people in here. We had
Nice.
Uncle Squirrel was the first one. I said, that's a lot of rodents, right?
Yeah.
But he had David James from Iowa, One-Eyed Cat from PA. Mr. Wilburn is in here.
John's in the
whole
house.
Group. Let's see. Mostly old parts rust. Man, we got a bunch of them. Jason's Garage. What's up, Jason? Howdy, gang. Let's see.
Try that next one. Aaron, what? Come on, go for it.
Man, you know what? I ruined this guy's name every time. Aaron G.
Aaron G. That's how great. That's how I do too. Aaron G.
Yep. I'm like totally, in the Navy. They would murder everybody's name, right?
Yeah.
And it's like in boot camp, you would have got a name like this. Was see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You would have got G10. That's what would have been your name. Aaron G10, right?
G10.
That's what they would have called you. Let's see. Richard Bucket, Mr. Dick Bucket. What's up? Let's see. Nice. Terrence Seymour. Hey, guys. Oh, this guy's from the other side of the planet.
Wow.
The other hemisphere.
Wow.
Yep. Let's see. Mr. Wilburn saying, gentlemen, Wendy English is in here. And I'm sure Don is going to be popping in here soon, and maybe even Ron. So
awesome.
Aaron says they call him G Alphabet.
G Alphabet. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, it's all the above, right?
I wasn't even going to try to pronounce it. I've tried it in the past, and I just murder it every time. So it's like Aaron G10.
You know what you should do is write in the comments phonetically how to say it. Like
Bueno amigos, says the wife.
The wifey. Yeah, she's in the other room watching. Good.
Oh, well, Aaron was in the Navy. He says G-germ. My license plate said G-germ in the Navy.
Right.
So he knows in boot camp, he probably was G10.
Yeah, he gets it.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, One-Eyed Cat is Don English. He made a new channel. Yeah, you do have the One-Eyed Cat. That's right. That thing, it pretty much jumps in there and shows you all of the glory. So Dakota's timeouts here. Howdy, y'all. I bet if we got Dakota's time in and Dakota's time sideways and all that stuff, he's got like 400 accounts.
Really?
Well, he just says it's as simple as Germanson. Okay.
I would have butchered that. I would have killed that.
Yeah, me too. I would have been like, when there was no vowel between those two consonants right there, I would have locked up and froze.
Yeah.
So Colleen Tebow's in the house, Buff's Garage, Ken 51 Flatty. Well, we're going to get going tonight with some tech talk. Shane and I are both dealing with some absolutely terrible weather. Shane just got it, and I'm starting to get it now. So it's traveling eastward across Tennessee. So it just got done smashing Memphis and washing out all the Beale Street. And it's on its way to Nashville, and it's going to smash Nashville.
You guys are next. Yeah, we're about 25 miles outside of just east of Memphis, and it was gnarly. It was there. It looks like a war zone outside with all the trees that are down and stuff. So it's crazy.
Whoa! Yeah, much down trees.
Yeah, man. It was like dodging like incoming missiles. In fact, the neighbor was out there picking up branches and stuff when I pulled up, and just the amount of stuff that was across the road, you couldn't see the lines at all. It was gnarly, man. It was crazy. Yeah.
Well, hey, so everybody needs to throw in some questions here so we can get them answered.
While they're waiting,
Shane and I are going to talk about buying camshafts at Schneider's while getting a burrito, or street racing in Southern California, or
actually, I got something. I do have something.
What do you have?
I was just telling you, man. I came up with something really bitchin' that's on its way. It's for all the Slant 6 people. There was a industrial adapter plate that they put in like the D100 like chassis vans that had a Slant 6, and that way you could put like a 727 behind them. But they had this adapter plate. And this guy pulled out one of these new old stock things. So I got that, and I'm going to start reproducing those. So anyone who's got a Slant 6 thing, pretty soon you're going to be able to run any type you're not going to just be stuck with any Slant 6. You can run an A500 overdrive transmission now from a Mopar. Anything that's a small block Mopar, you can put it now
Or
behind your Slant 6.
you could run a stick shift.
I just told the wife that. I was like, I could put my TKX behind a Slant 6. Exactly.
Yeah, that would be actually pretty cool, because if you
Yeah.
could get a small enough stick shift, the thing would, like a T5, kind of similar to a T5. I don't know if Chrysler made one, did they? Did they make something small like that? Stick shift?
Not a 5-speed. Well, yeah, behind the Mitsubishi, the Mitsubishi Mighty Max. It's like an S10 type thing. You could probably put one of those back there, because that had the same type of little bell housing.
Huh.
So.
Oh, well, Jonathan Couchy's throwing a question in us right away. I did some research on the International 392 4.125-inch bore. Oh, that's a killer bore.
Wow.
And then 3.66-inch stroke. That whole combo sounds like hot rod motor to me.
Right. Absolutely perfect.
Can flow 280 CFM. That's equivalent to having like 560 horse. You can make 560 horse on that combo.
The only thing I see so far is the bad rod journal. That's a big rod journal.
Yeah, that it is. No. But you can turn that down to a Chevrolet, and it's not even really a problem.
Yeah, go to 100.
It's been bored and stroked to 447 cubes and 550 horse. Let's see.
Wow.
Truck pull motor. That sounds like it could be a pretty healthy motor, especially with a bore like that. The bore and stroke is actually really, really comparable for performance.
Yeah, exactly. That's super high RPM right there. I wish I knew the rod length. Did it say rod length on there? No. But even then, that's awesome. That is awesome. I like that.
LP94 is in the house. Oh, Jonathan Couchy says you could run an NV3500.
Yeah, you can run anything. Exactly. He's exactly right. So that's the beauty of it, is that you can find anything. And
here you go. Aaron Germanson says 4-banger Dakota had a stick shift.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. The Dodge D50, which is like a Dodge Dakota. They had a D50, which is like the Mitsubishi variant. But yeah, exactly. So
NSB Custom Cars. We haven't heard from you since the end of the No Name Nationals. I was kind of wondering what actually you came up in conversation today, because a guy I sold a motor to, I built a motor I called Jack the Giant Killer, which was a 308 cubic inch small block Buick, ended up in Florida.
Yeah.
And this guy was telling me, hey, I was watching the No Name Nationals and I saw these guys NSB Custom Cars, and I think they're out of New Smyrna Beach. And I'm like, yeah, they are. And he said they're only like 30 minutes from me. So he might be hitting you guys up.
Awesome.
Dr. Art is in here from Dr. Art's Hot Rod Rehab. And I haven't seen Dr. Art in like a week. It'll be a week tomorrow, right? So, and no lemons tomorrow. We're taking a hiatus.
No lemons?
There's just too many problems with the lemons car. It needs something's up with the training. Won't go into high gear. I think the valve body. I literally bought this Turbo 400 from behind this guy's shed on Marketplace, right? And when I got it, it was it had no dipstick tube in it. So every time it rained, it just filled the pan more and more and more. So when I go pick it up, for $100, I mean, it's not a bad price, but it's filled with water. It had pine needles in it and freaking pine cones and stuff. And I'm like, well, I just drained the water out. I added a bottle of rubbing alcohol to it to displace all the water.
Yeah. That's good.
And then I turned it upside down, let it drain for 2-3 days. And then I shot it with some brake clean and to get everything out. And it has every gear except for high. And so I'm assuming what's happened is there's probably water has got up in those spools,
the clutches,
the spindle valves. Yep. And then it's one of them's not moving. So it won't go into high. It's not like it has, second neutral or anything. It won't shift.
Yeah.
So
check the governor.
Well, I'm going to pull the valve body out of it, I think.
Yeah. Just pop the governor out of it. I've seen that too, where the governor just kind of is stuck. I mean, really, if it's a governor problem, it wouldn't even go into second also, but sometimes it's just the governor won't allow it to shift into third. And if it was full of water, that will help.
Yeah, and I just figured it's probably worth it to pull the pan off and check things out, because I actually have the valve body that was in the Suburban, so it's got like a Transgo shift kit and stuff in it. So I think I might just swap that right into this turd. And the other thing was, so for some reason, it's developed a rear main seal leak, and not like a piddly little one. It's like the kind where you're like, coating the underside of the car.
So rust prevention. It's
And
like
and it has never hardly driven anywhere. It's literally just idling and slinging the oil everywhere.
wow.
So I don't know if it's just sat too long and it burned the seal out of it because it just didn't have any oil on it when we started it back up. I don't know. It hasn't lasted very long, so I'll take the motor out and put it on a stand, and I'll change the rear main seal. And if you've ever done a small block Buick rear main seal or even a V6 Buick, it is a big bitch of a job because those main caps are part of the block. And it has not only does it have the rear main seal, and it's got the two little side skirt seals on it, right?
Oh yeah, it's like a big block Mopar. Same thing.
They do not like to go in there. You literally got to freeze them and pray that they go in that slot. They're usually pretty tight. And then what's weird is you drive a nail in them once you get them in there so that they seal tight.
Just get rid of that. Can you just put like right stuff in there? Because I got rid of all that crap on the back of the Slant 6 stuff. I stopped, the little seals that you press down and then you got to make sure that they're down. You got to cut them off. I just got rid of all that stuff.
You put the right stuff in there?
Fuck yeah.
Well, this one has the right stuff in there, but apparently it's leaking it. And so I'm hoping that, I don't know if it's the side ones, the side skirts, or the rear main, but yeah, it's gonna have to come back out. So we're just gonna take a hiatus, and hopefully we can get to the track in December, which we were planning on doing. But we want to get the car right so that when we go, it actually might make it more than one lap. Let's see here. Okay. Craig Chitto saying someone needs to make an adapter for Ford big block and or diesel to small block Ford.
It's kind of that's a niche market. I mean, I know Slant 6 is also a niche market too, but I mean, I don't know, man.
I'm going to go on a limb here and I say that there probably already is one. I bet you TransDap makes one for Ford. It shouldn't be too hard. The starter's in the same location.
There's another company out of LA called WheelCap. Have you ever heard of them? WheelCap. Yeah, WheelCap. It's just this one guy, and that's actually where I got my adapter plate for the Slant 6 to a 204R. So it's called WheelCap. Yeah, check them out. They have everything.
Really. WheelCat or Cap?
Cap, C-A-P.
Okay.
Let me make sure I'm saying that correct. 1 second. WheelCap.
Well, it looks like JB made it in here. He says that for some reason this channel gets his phone fits.
Well. Yeah, it's called WheelCap, WILCAP, WheelCap adapters, and it's wheelcap.com, and they have pretty much everything. I'm actually in Ford right now. Yeah, they have overhead foul. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff, like 15 of them.
So Jonathan Couchy says that International 392 has a rod length of 6.75 inch.
Perfect. That's an RPM. That thing's
monster.
Awesome. That thing sounds great.
Yeah, what in reality that thing would be the perfect stroker motor because you could pull a lot of rod out of that, and it's probably got a really tall deck height.
Yep.
So you could pull a lot of rod out of that. Or as a matter of fact, you could probably leave all that rod in there and then just stroke that sucker.
Yeah, just raise the pin height and that cut down on your bob weight.
All right. Let's see. Mostly Old Parts and Rust says you can get a 727 international bolt pattern.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, you can also get them in AMC too. All kinds
Harry Australia says, good day from Adelaide, South Australia.
Wow.
Hey,
awesome.
man.
Good day.
Good day. Yeah, I was down there for a while. I lived there for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, not in Adelaide, but I did live in I lived in Sydney and in this little area. It was called Rose Bay. It was super high-end place. Gosh, man. Talk about being poor all the time. But it was also, ironically, the same place that the lead singer from NXS had killed himself. Right?
Really?
Yeah, I walked by the hotel every day on the way to work. So, kind of cool, huh?
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. Let's see. Jonathan Couchy says, I have a 727 from International 304. The shorter 304 crank can be thrown into the 392, and you can make a 340 cubic inch motor. That would be like a 7.5 inch long rod.
Right. Exactly. Did you ever watch Engine Masters way back in the day when I think it was Kazi did one of those MEL,
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah,
then what he
worker
did
hit the
is,
Lincoln line or whatever.
yeah, and then what he did is on his cylinder head, he made the cylinder head go down into the cylinder bore almost 3 inches. So, dude, you have to look it up because there was a whole
Oh, it's
thing on.
cutting deck height off of it.
Yeah, but you couldn't cut the deck height. So what he did is he made the cylinder head protrude down into the cylinder bore. It
So
was
he like machined the head down.
yeah, he
So
made
that
that.
it closed the chamber further down in the bore.
Yeah, so then it gave it a straighter shot because you could do whatever you want to the head, but you couldn't change the deck height or anything. So he just shortened up
See,
everything.
that's why I like the Engine Master magazines before it became a
Yeah,
a Motor Trend show on YouTube, and then later on the Motor Trend show. But that
can you hear the
magazine has
rain?
all kinds of geniusness.
Can you hear the rain coming through on my phone?
No.
My wow, that's amazing.
All right. So Jonathan Couchy says that the international bell housing is the same as the AMC bell housing. Oh, sweet.
Yeah, I that's something I didn't know. That's good.
Let's see here. Jonathan Couchy says, I figured I'm going to spend about $6,000 building a Mopar. It would cost the same to push for a mid 500 horsepower international 392. Man, I tell you what, if you want to know expensive hot rod stuff, go dabble in some Buicks for about 20 minutes.
Oldsmobile. I think Oldsmobile.
Dude. Is Oldsmobile worse?
Oh, it's just terrible. Yeah, they don't make anything for it either. Just like you. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Shane is my professional parts hookup whenever I need something that's like not made, which is like a lot of stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that camshaft. Oh, by the way, I got the specs. Oh man, I'm gonna butcher them, but yeah, I got the cam specs. It's actually bigger than you think because it's advertised. It's like 250 something for the cam specs for that 67 Buick. Yeah. I was surprised. No, they don't have.
You're talking about the 67 300.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the BMF that I put in that 430.
No. This is for the 2-barrel 67 300 or cam that we were looking up. Man, that but because they're such slow masters that the advertised is so big. I bet you the duration of 50 is probably 210 or maybe even 200. But man, it's like 250 something at the advertised. I was actually rather shocked. Like that's bigger than I thought it would be.
That's pretty healthy. And you know what? It could have been because that was the engine made directly. That family was made directly after the nailhead, which actually the nailheads had pretty big cams in them.
Yeah, I mean that could be it. And that's so we're gonna make it. We're gonna find something that has the same lift and the same advertised, and then we're gonna try to get the same amount of we know about as far as how fast they opened up at that time. So I will match something that has the same area under the curve. So you're going to get the best apples to apples comparison.
Now, what Shane's talking about here is a guy named Thomas Brown that follows me for the Mr. Rogers neighborhood sent me I actually put a all hands call out for a 68 Buick 350 camshaft. And I figured it was probably the closest I could find to a 67 2-barrel 300 cam. It was going to be relatively close in pattern, right? So he sent me one and I threw it over to Shane. Shane is on the side, during his lunch breaks or whatever while eating a sandwich. He's cutting lobes down. And this thing's actually been a lot more work than I think was expected.
It's fun. It's cool, though. I dig it. Yeah.
And but he said to turn all the journals down, which was fine because that was expected. It had smaller journals all the way. They were tapered like a Mopar. And then, but the problem is the lobes were so damn big on it that it wouldn't fit through the block then at that point. So then he had to cut the lobes down, try to keep the same pattern so that we're not skewing the results from this what if 300 with a 350 Buick head on it.
Yeah. So that way we can actually compare this. Like what would only the heads change? Like would the heads make any difference at all if everything being the same and equal?
Right. Yep. That was exactly the idea. And the only difference really is going to be the one thing I can't manage is the intake manifold. I'm going to have to go from a dual plane to a single plane because they make a single plane for a Buick 350. They make a dual plane for a Buick 350 as well. But to adapt that Buick 350 dual plane to that 300 block, which is a shorter deck height,
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to cut this thing up so bad that it would probably impact how it would flow to begin with.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So the single plane was based on, it's like an air gap style. So I can actually cut the whole bottom out, cut the runners off, shorten the runners, weld it back together, and have, it should be pretty easy. It's straight shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and here's Tom Brown right here. Late but made it. Hello, everybody. Hey, I was just talking about you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Truck ZF, small block Ford are hard to find. I have one. It's about the only good part of my white Ford truck that's left.
That sucks, man. You're telling me about that. Sucks.
Yeah. All right. And here's the good thing. Dakota's timeout says fluid leaks equal less mowing. Yes, they do. Downside is when you're trying to use a Lemons car and you actually want to turn more than just into the pits or come out of staging. Fluid leaks dripping all over your tires in a road race situation. Not good. No matter how much grip you got, you can't overcome oil spills.
Yeah.
Let's see. John Wilburn put the link up for the wheelcap.com.
Yeah. Go and check them out. I actually got them up here on the screen as we're talking. I'm kind of looking through it. There's a lot of Ford stuff up there, and it's, 460 to Chevy automatic, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of things up there that are, so yeah.
Jody Calhoun asks an interesting question here. How much compression can 87 Octane support?
That doesn't matter. It goes down to your camshaft and your cylinder head, 100%.
I was going to say, I've seen 10 to 1 on 87.
I've seen 11 and 12 to 1.
Have you really?
Oh yeah, because your cylinder head, it's how efficient your cylinder head is in combination with your camshaft. Now, if you're running a camshaft with a super wide LSA, you can get away with it because you're going to have
it's going to bleed off a lot of that pressure.
Exactly. So it really comes down to camshaft and cylinder head and flow. I mean, there's many different factors, but I've seen the whole gamut. I've made camshafts for everything where people had to run 87 octane or even lower than that. I've seen 85. The people who I call it diet fuel, the stuff that's the non-ethanol stuff. You see that down to 85, and they want to run that, and they have 10.5 to 1. So we make a camshaft accordingly.
Well, and I have seen 10 to 1 with cast iron headed motor, but a lot of it has to do with bore stroke, right? And then the other thing is like he's saying, your camshaft. Your camshaft is critical in this area, right?
Yeah, it'll either work or won't work. You can have some other factors. You can back timing off. You can do this, but I'm telling you right now, if you don't have the right camshaft, it's going to be a pig.
Look at this. Who just popped in here?
Oh, what's up, Mr.
You guys are the sexiest automotive tech talk people on YouTube with your hot little headphones and all that. Yeah. Well, this is what happens when you got to do it from a long distance.
Yeah.
We went straight to the less archaic model, Tony, and we went to more online. That way Shane and I could be in different rooms and not have to travel for this.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, well, welcome back, Tony.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Tom Brown says there's a video out there about the guys that built the engine for the world's fastest Model A engine land speed car that had the combustion chamber down inside the cylinder for the same reason. Yep. Oh, well, because it was rules limited, right?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So that's and I think they got that from the Kazi engine that was in Engine Masters, because it was just amazing it was in the magazine when I saw it. And they took it apart and it was all down in the cylinder. It was just amazing. Like, you're like, how did this guy think of that? Where did that come from?
Man, I don't know. Kazi is a freaking genius when it comes to this stuff, right?
I think the thing is he reads the rules, and it's not what's in the rules, it's what's not in the rules. That's
right. Well, exactly. And that's so when we did the monkey bike class for No Name Nationals, right? And I had so many phone calls about that, and I'm like, look, guys, the rules are in front of you. If it's not in the rules, it's not against the rules.
Don't ask.
Right? You put it together, and if it says you have to use a stock clutch, that doesn't mean that you can't take the stock clutch and modify that clutch.
Yeah.
Right? That just means it had to be the factory clutch that came on the thing. Cut it all up, shave it down, open it up, whatever you got to do. to get that edge, right? And that's why we did it. Was it, in all actuality, I mean, I'll be straightforward. Tony is the one that came up with that monkey bike class. Well, not necessarily the monkey bike class. I wrote the rules for it. He said, we got to use something that's got to be a spec class, right? And so we kicked around some ideas. John and I did, lawn mowers and something that you could afford to get just right off of Marketplace.
Yeah.
But then Tony brought that thing up, and I'm like, you know what? I remember seeing those. And I went down to the Tractor Supply, and they had one, and I'm like, $400. That's the easiest content that you're going to have for YouTube, right? And that you could literally not have a channel, go buy one of those, do some content on it, be ready to go for the event, right?
Yeah.
So, I thought it would be interesting. All right, so Jonathan Couchy is talking about the combustion chamber on the International SV-V8s includes 392. Reminds me of the single rocker shaft semi-Hemi Chryslers and the Poly 318. The only issue is the intake valve is dead even with the cylinder bore. What does he mean by that?
Probably right in the center, straight up and down.
Oh, yeah, that's terrible.
Mm-hmm. Which means it's unshrouded, but that means where you're going to put the exhaust point at that point, and that's where you're going to have problems with shrouding of the exhaust valve. Yeah.
Also, the angle is going to have to be like what, 30 degree or 20 degrees or something.
Yeah, it's going to be terrible.
Yeah, it'd be great for torque. You know what would be really awesome is somebody really figured one of those 392s out and cast a head for them.
Yeah,
and then used like an updated. Well, even though because it sounds like it's a pent roof design, like the Poly, the Buicks are all like that. They're a pent roof design. I don't know what the semi-Hemi Chryslers are, but I'm assuming it's the same kind of thing as a Poly, right?
Yeah.
That's great for torque. And what I found is you mill that chamber down. The more you mill it, and the more quench you can give that thing, the better it gets. But if you use a newer design like a heart chamber like a GT40 P head or like a Vortex Chevrolet head, I'll bet you that sucker would really come alive.
It almost sounds like it's perfect for like a turbo with that big ass bore with the short stroke. This valve going right in there. Just make up.
Yeah. Because it was designed to be a truck or like a torque motor, right? And if you just threw a turbo at that thing, did you freeze up, Shane? I think we lost you. Dang. Shane froze up. All right. Well, I'll carry on without him. Maybe he'll chime back in here. Hopefully his house didn't get struck by lightning. But let's see. I'm going to roll through some of these comments here. Everybody's just greeting each other, which is always awesome. Let's see. Tony says, I love being in separate rooms from you guys. Just popped in for a minute, pulling the trans out of bottle rocket so Shane can increase the magic a bit. Oh, well, give it a little bit more slop, huh? He's going to loosen her up. That's good. Well, I thought that thing was pretty awesome on the bottle. Let's see. Craig Chitto saying a 5.2 Magnum compression height is 1.81. LA is 1.755. Oh, so it's a little bit taller piston. Oh, so here's an update from Shane. He just messaged me. He says, they got a power outage. So I don't know if we'll see him again tonight. We'll see how it goes. Let's see. Dallas, can you elaborate on the new cam for the Buick 430? If not willing to tell specs, what kind of car is it going into? All right, Tom. That's actually going into a 69 Wildcat. To be honest with you, I would love to elaborate on the specs. Shane is trying to get me a cam card. There is no cam card. And he told me what it was, and I had to use it in reference to something else, and I cannot remember what they were, to be honest with you. Once I get a cam card, I will put it up on Mr. Rodder's neighborhood so everyone can see what it is. All we did was we started off with what we knew worked, which is like your TA212, the TA284, 88H. And that was the idea, was this is going in a 69 Wildcat. And this guy wanted some chop. But generally the problem is when you throw in a lot of duration and overlap, you pull out some of the bottom end. and it loses some of that torque. And that's not what I was shooting for at all. This is a 69 Wildcat. It's like literally a land yacht, right? So we played with the cam ramp rates and profile long enough that we could come up with something that was actually a very, very good compromise. It gives up a couple ponies at the top end compared to, like a race camshaft, but it is fairly healthy. I mean, this thing is well over 500 lift. So the duration on it, I want to say, I have something here that can give me a reference, but let's see. Duration at 50 is pretty healthy. Now, so the thing is I could not find a camshaft, so I ended up finding one that was my buddy had this solid cam that was from TA that was I want to say like a 292S or something, and it had been gacked. He blew the motor up and it hurt one of the lobes. So I sent it to Shane since you can't get a camcorder, and I asked him if we could grind. I could give him kind of like a baseline of what I was shooting for. So let's say, okay. So at 50, the BMF, the Mr. Rotter's Neighborhood BMF is 225, 232 at 50. So intake is 225, exhaust is 232. It's on a 110 LSA, and it has 512 lift. So it is pretty healthy. Or actually, I think that's wrong. I don't think it's 512 lift. I think it's 480. 480 lift. Let's see here. So Elizabeth Pulido, Shane's wife, is telling me the power just went out. Now, of course, I'm behind. So let's see. Jonathan Couch, he's really talking about this international. I've never seen one of these, so I'm kind of actually intrigued. I'd like to get one. Oh, all right. I see what's going on. Tony's talking about it's awesome on the bottle, but it's dead in A, so he needs to loosen it up for that. Yeah, that was normally how they go. Unfortunately, is nitrous setup runs good on nitrous, not so good on all motor. There is a fine line to walk on that, and converter is the big one. So he's asking Tom Brown. No, it's not a big port head. It's actually 1109 heads, which is the later heads that were designed to replace the big ports. So this is going to be just a kind of run of the mill 430 with a pretty good camshaft in it. It's 69 specs. So it's a 69 head, 69 intake manifold. I've done all the oiling mods on it. The timing covers opened up. It's got a A-type housing for the oil filter, so that one's been opened up quite a bit. That's taken out to 9/16, and then I cut the dog leg out of the oil return from the filter. Let's see. Oh, Fab Race Mod Repeat. Really good. You're moving forward. Oh, yeah. Well, I've actually been moving forward the whole time. I've just been waiting for essentially parts, time to work on it. I am going to finish it up, and I'm going to actually have a running engine hopefully by the end of the year. So that way everybody can see what the difference is between the 350 Buick head and the 300 Buick head on a 300 cubic inch motor. So, all right. Don English here says, what does the yellow paint mark mean on a body torsion bar? A rating, I figure. Oh, man, I don't know that one at all. And if Shane was here, he probably would know that. If anyone does know that one, feel free to jump in. All right. Mopar Man 1978 Big Block 402. I watched that video Bear Rose mentioned. Man, Big Block 402, that poor guy, his candy cane gave up the ghost at about the 440-foot mark at Jeffers. Let's see. Tom Brown says, I got a guy that wants me to refresh his 403 with big port heads. Maybe 430 he's talking about. Might have to get one cut. I tell you what, everybody said those heads crack, and I had good luck using them. And then the guy that I sold the motor to had a big port set of heads on it. He just called me last week, and one of them cracked up through the exhaust, right all the way through the exhaust port into the exhaust guide. So he called me, and I ran him a set of 70 heads. So he's going to take those big ports off, and one of them's cracked, the other one's not. Oh, everyone's talking about the Hughes Whiplash. That was, and I've said it before, that was Tony's go-to cam for like a street driver, healthy cam for small block Dodge. Oh, Shane's going to jump into the chat to help out. All right, well, cool. There is a question about the torsion bar with the yellow markings on it. Doug Narden says, I own a BMF hammer. Well, yeah, my buddy used to have the BFH. Oh, Colleen's saying the same thing, BFH. Yeah. All right. 2 hacks. What is happening, man? I haven't seen you in a while. You've been hiding out. All right. Oh, Doug says the BMF hammer is one level over the BFH. So if you got one. All right, Tony, good night. Let's see here. So Mopar Man 1978 says got a mean cam picked out for the 78 360 as a future motor for the 65 Dart. Okay, what is it? Is it the Hughes Whiplash? Do vacuum gauges read a little bouncy on higher performance engines? Yes, the more camshaft you throw at it, generally the less stable the vacuum signal is. And that's what would cause that. It depends how healthy of a camshaft you have in it. The more duration you go, generally the more bouncy it gets. Oh, there you go. John Wilburn saying the paint marks on the Chrysler torsion bars are the rate. All right, so Shane is hiding under his wife's moniker here, and he's chiming in as Mr. Professor P is now known as Elizabeth Pulido. So John's saying that a single yellow stripe is an 830 slant 6 bar. So let's see. Jonathan Couchy says with the 392, I will need lighter valves, stiffer valve springs for RPM. I also will need to drill some oil drain back holes. Do the heads not have oil drain back holes that are sufficient enough to for that motor? Let's see. Yeah. Oh, Tom. Those big port heads, I thought they were great. But if they do crack like that, I mean, I don't know. I'd like to get another set, and what I'll do is I'll take them and get them nitrided and see if it actually does that, or what it is nitrided or cryogenically frozen, cryogenically treated, and see if that actually does anything itself. It has to be. It has to be from heat. But the only thing I could think of is if you cryogenically treat them, it generally supposed to help. Well, you know what? There's also another thing called you put them on a vibration table. If you put them on a vibration table, it's supposed to align the molecules through vibration. And I don't think it's going to work as well as cryogenically treating them, but I wouldn't mind taking a set of those heads and see if it actually does anything different with them. Doug Narden says, I've seen your valve body being assembled today. What an honor. Number 500. Oh, and John has a custom valve body coming from Cope Racing Transmissions. Let's see. Craig Chitto needs to set up a dyno mule for me, Vizard, to test the whiplash cam against something from the computer program. Huh. I don't know how that's going to... You're talking about using the same motor and then you have two different camshafts? I thought Vizard's cam computer program was actually really, really accurate. Let's see. Dakota's timeout. MI 455 runs real good on 89 octane. And Tang mix. Who doesn't like Tang? Oh, well, now they're in a tornado watch. Hey, Pulido, you guys probably want to head to lower ground. Man, this sucks. Let's see here. Jonathan Couchy says, the oil drain back needs to be drilled like some people do. The oil valleys of some engines, you know how oil could build up there. Then the bearings go poof. Yeah, and that's because all your oil is stuck top in. I'm assuming you're probably talking about oil drain back holes in the lifter valley then. And surely small blocks were kind of, you had to do some work on those. A lot of the, if you look at a lot of the nostalgia dragsters, if you see when they got the motors apart, they'll have oil drain back stuff set up in them. But I've also seen them where they have like a, I don't know what you would call them. I guess it'd be a chimney in there, and to where the oil wouldn't drain back until it got up to a certain height in the valley. Vizard's Torque Master cam software is legit. You can get a trial version fairly cheap. You know what? Hey, John, you want to jump in on this? I could send you a link. Let's see here. All right, I just shot you a link so that I at least got somebody else in here with me. So Craig Chitto is saying, I know he just went in for surgery. Has anyone heard from him? That's David Vizard, right? And Vizard was actually supposed to be at the No Name Nationals, and he ended up not coming because of this. And so I'm really hoping things pull through for him. It's supposed to be just some. It's not some, it's nothing huge. When you get older, this just becomes more common. There he is.
What's happening?
How would you like some tech talk?
Sure. Sounds good to me.
Well, I just figured since Pulido's out.
Yeah. Hey, no problem. I'm here. Since somebody had asked about camshaft software, Vizard's program is called Torque Master. And there's two softwares that you can get from him on his website. One is Torque Master for camshafts. The other is the intake optimization program. But the Torque Master software is based on, he's got about 70,000 dyno pulls logged in when he worked for Crane. And this is based on anything that is your regular wedge head. So the formula is not quite as accurate with canted valve or Hemi head, but if you have a true wedge, it's really, really good. Huh. And you plug in your variables, bore and stroke and what kind of head. And plus he has a big profile of part numbers you can put in. And the end result is not only will it tell you what kind of cam you're looking for, lift, duration, lobe separation, center line, all of that, it'll even give you a range of part numbers of different cams with different
that would fit that kind of
manufacturers.
spec.
It'll even give you the part numbers. So he says then after you have the part numbers, obviously look what brands you want to have, but also look at how much area is within the lobe, because you can have two lobes with the same lift and duration and have a different profile. So you can narrow it down from there and get a really good cam selection. We got to play a lot with that when we were down there at his place.
And that's exactly how the camshaft that I was that Shane ground for me for the Mr. Rodder's neighborhood was specifically that. It was the lobe itself, that what he was calling the area under the curve, right?
Correct.
Is much more aggressive, and it allows for the same lift and duration, but the camshaft is going to be completely different than another cam that's a very similar profile.
Yes, that's true. The lift and duration is not the whole story.
Yeah, its ramp rate is the big one.
Ramp rate, and believe it or not, you can actually get a little crazier ramp rate with a flat tappet cam than a roller.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, Tom Brown says, have you ever used any of the desktop dyno programs? I've used the old 2002 edition for years. Pretty accurate if you enter everything right. Are the new programs better? I was big on that desktop dyno because I was stationed overseas and on a ship. I had to live on a ship, right? And the one thing that the government did provide was a computer for me to do all my work in like 1997 or 6. And it was an old Windows. I want to say Windows 3.1. Is that such a thing?
I remember desktop dyno. I had a copy of it,
and it was on a floppy. I had it on a floppy, and I played with that thing endlessly when I got off of work every day. And I still have all the profiles. And then when the new one came out in like 2002, I jumped in there, threw all that same stuff in there, and man, I have a camshaft profile that's pretty bitching, but God, is it humongous. But I have played with them, and they are really accurate as long as you get the information correct. And the further you get it from being correct, the more out to lunch it actually is. So Dakota says, I forgot how long these timeouts lasted. You must have nailed them, John.
300 seconds.
Yeah, Doug Darden says, I hope Sir David is feeling better soon. Has he been knighted by the Queen?
Not that I know of. He wasn't feeling so great before Sykeston. He really wanted to be there, but you take it day by day, and we hope he gets better soon. I'm sure I'll be down there doing something with him. Actually, we're planning to do some stuff this winter, so we'll have him on for too long.
Well, I was hoping that he would be there at No Name Nationals, but when he started having medical issues, it was like, okay, I know exactly what's going to happen here, right? Yeah. I mean, you're going to err on the side of caution. That's what most people would do.
Right.
There's nothing more important in your life than your health, right? I mean, everything else is contrary compared to your health. Let's see. Fabra Mod Race and Repeat is saying that I use DynoSim 5. And I'm assuming that's an updated version of
I've not heard of that. I've not heard of that.
Dakota's timeout says, how do you tell ramp rate? Why don't they put that on cam cards? It's actually how fast the ramp is on the camshaft profile. Yeah,
I don't know exactly how they would express that, but
well, my old man was running Buicks back in the early 70s, I guess. He had an old Lanati camshaft for a Buick that actually had almost square lobes on it.
Yeah.
Oh, and okay, so Chris is saying that this is Chris Cox, Fab Race Mod Repeat, out of he lives there in Chesapeake, Virginia. I use DynoSim 5 from Comp Cams. It works fairly well. And he is always doing stuff. This is the guy that runs the mom and pop speed shop called Speed Oasis LLC out of Chesapeake.
Yes.
And he builds engines on a daily basis pretty much. And if he's using the DynoSim 5 to give him a ballpark, you can bet it's probably pretty close. Let's see. Those square lobe cams can do some strong things. Yeah, like break valve springs and bend push rods. That's what I've seen. Is they're hell on some valve train, and I think that's just because of the valve action on them so fast.
When we were comparing camshafts with Vizard, your roller cams, they always have more area under the curve because of the shape of the lobe. But when you have a flat tappet, you can get a faster ramp rate, from what I understand.
Huh.
Because of what that wide, flat surface will follow versus the peak of that roller. If you think about it.
But the roller is literally just a wheel, right? So
the roller is a wheel, but the roller also has an infinitely small bottom to it. Whereas the flat lifter is so, yeah, exactly. And the lifter is so wide across. Which I just thought it was interesting.
Dakota's asking, what is a hydrologic flat tappet cam? That's one of those ones that was profiled by NASA. Yes, right here. Pull studs out of the heads. I'm telling you, they are brutal on valve train stuff.
Yeah.
The Buick's a shaft rocker, and what you would always find with those gnarly camshafts like that is it would either pull this. It's got bolts that bolt the shaft down. There's only 4 of them per side, right? And it will pull the threads out of those bolts, or they'll break the shaft off on the very end ones because there's no weight supporting. There's nothing supporting the weight and the energy except the shaft.
K. Nelson says he's enjoyed the No Name Nationals coverage I could find. Maybe it's their dedicated channel. So my channel is the hub for news and information. But if you go to YouTube and go to the search bar and you put in hashtag No Name Nationals, all one word with a hashtag, you'll get over 6,200 videos dedicated to that event.
Actually, it's up over 7,000 now, John.
Is it?
Yeah.
I looked today. It could be. It's a lot.
Huh. Well, and I may be wrong.
It's a bunch. It's that's what you're looking for, K. Nelson. Hashtag No Name Nationals in your YouTube search bar. You'll get everything you're looking for.
So Tom Brown is saying on early TPI engines, will the computer compensate to make more power under load on the ignition with higher octane fuel? Those early GMs actually had knock sensors, so I would have to go out on a limb and say yes.
If it's knocking, if it's pulling the timing out.
And it pulls ridiculous amounts of timing when it knocks. It pulls like 20 degrees.
Yeah.
So let's see. Dakota's saying, I meant to ask if that square lobe cam was a hydraulic flat tappet cam. It was not hydraulic, but it was a solid flat tappet camshaft. So, I mean, there was, so in the Jack the Giant Killer 300 8 cubic inch small block Buick I did, there was the camshaft that was originally in the 215 is the one I put in this 300, and it was an Isky 5-cycle cam, and they stopped making those in like 68 or 9, right? So it was actually using your valve bounce or valve float as a whole nother part of the cycle of the camshaft.
Wow.
So it's a pretty neat piece, though.
Ooh, sounds brutal on parts.
Oh, I'm sure it is. And then the neat thing was the Buick 300. It has the push rod is directly in line with the rocker arm, so there's no offset to it. The 350 has an offset on there, so it actually binds as it goes up, right? Because all the weight's being applied to one side of the rocker.
Mm-hmm.
But on the 300, it's all directly in line. And then the rockers themselves are all aluminum. So when you go to a lightweight like chromoly push rod and with the valve train the way it is, it takes, there's a lot of mass that's not there on, on normal engines, it would be a lot more mass there.
Right.
This thing doesn't have it. Craig Cho says, what do you do different porting a 300 straight 6 head over a crossflow head? Wow. That's a good question. To tell you the truth, on 300 straight 6, they're just like a Slant 6 where essentially both ports are on the same side of the head. I would automatically assume that heat becomes a factor in there, and you do not want to get them too thin because they can crack.
Well, the other thing in addition to porting would be the cam. Depending on your valve arrangement, where you have valves in line, you generally need a tighter lobe separation. And when your valves are spread apart, you can run a wider one.
And then on those engines, the air is coming in and then making a reverse,
right,
an about face and going back the other way.
Versus a crossflow.
Right.
So the crossflow, I would think, would be more like your canted valve and Hemi stuff, where you run a wider lobe separation on the cam.
Huh. Well,
now that said, Greg Brown, his hammerheads, he's found optimum power on those heads, and those are Hemi heads, and he's found it with a tight LSA. So there's some real world dyno testing that disagrees with what's conventional.
Well, and a lot of this is just assumption because, okay, when they started making camshafts and they realized way back when, okay, you're talking flathead Ford, which had abysmal airflow rates.
Yeah.
Right?
Terrible.
And they realized that hey, look, the wider the LSA is, right, the more power this thing makes. Well, it was struggling just for any extra air it could possibly get, so it made a huge improvement. Well, at that point, everyone assumed, wider LSA means more power, right? And every camshaft across the board that was made from that point forward had a wider LSA, right? And it's now where people are actually sitting down playing with stuff and figuring out the engineering between each individual combination. Like, all right, are you familiar with Y-block Fords? Okay, Y-block Ford is the only V8 I've ever seen where the ports are stacked. Instead of being side by side, they're stacked, right? And they never really ran that good. But I seen some running 650s in the 8th mile. And you're like, how is this possible? Well, it's because they scienced out the Y-block Ford, right? That was literally a boat anchor. They never really ran good. Just like I'm doing with the Buick 350 is a boat anchor from, man, I tell you, I used to be able to get them for free. People would take them out and put a V6 Buick in its place because the V6 got better mileage and ran about the same. So you get these 350 Buicks for nothing. And I've always played with them. I'm not sciencing any of them out by any means, but I'm having a much better time than spending a couple of grand for each motor.
Yeah, what we learn as time goes on is amazing. I think that the Ford 351 modified 400 stuff, I can see that being an engine that people are going to do stuff with in the future.
Well, that's the Cleveland, right? So
right. It's a tall deck Cleveland. Right. And that's what I think people are missing the boat on.
That 400 Cleveland, because that one was actually never a modified. That was always a Cleveland. That 400 is where they ended up started stroking the Cleveland motors. It used those 400 cranks to begin with.
Right.
And they turned the mains down. And what you find out is now you can build a stroker big cubic inch Cleveland out of one of those things. And if you put the good 4-barrel heads on them, you don't have to spin them to 10 grand. You spin them to 7 grand and they make all kinds of power. So let's see here. Big Billy Racing. Good evening, Dallas and John, live from the hospital bed.
Yeah, I hope you're all right.
Yeah, man. I hope you are.
Mike Senior 340 says 6 in a row. The way God intended. I've had many. I'll pass. Tell that to the Nelsons. Deep 5s with an inline 6.
Look at that. Doug Narden says No Name Nationals was bitching. It was mutual cool to see everyone's ride out doing battle. Yeah, and you know what was funny was like what we kind of expected with the difference of personalities and egos amongst the YouTubers that it was going to be there was going to be some conflicts arise. It was cool as a cucumber, and nobody had any problems with. And it was literally like the best. I don't know, how do you explain it? It was like
none of the problem people showed up. There was just this handful of people that we thought would have the potential to cause a problem. None of them showed up, and once that happened, we knew we were good to go. We had absolutely zero problems. No problems. No one raised their voice. No arguments. No fights. Nothing. It was great.
Yep. And it was like when the sun went down and the racing was done for the day, and we did our burnout contest on Friday night, everybody was hanging around, drinking a few cold ones, talking with all the other channels. And that's the thing they liked the most about it, was that it was like, it was very, all the other channels were accessible. Right?
Well, what happened was, though, is we weren't just leaving that luck of the draw. As we saw, the community took care of it. The community told everybody else that what we expect and that we're all going to have a good time together. And the community is what made that makeup happen. And it worked great. Yeah, absolutely worked great.
Yeah. I can't wait till next year. It's going to be a good time.
Next year's going to be more of everything better. You'll see.
Fab Race Mod Repeat says Y blocks can be surprisingly strong when set up right. Even with the stacked intakes, they make great blower motors. I imagine the bottom end on those things is pretty beefy, because it went from your flathead Ford, which had 3 mains, to the Y block, which would have had 4 or 5, probably, just like every other engine that was being made at the time.
I can't get over how stout the parts are for the 385 Ford big blocks, like the 460, 429. I mean, that stuff is really strong.
Jonathan Couchy says, I guess my life's work will be to figure out the international SV V8 engines. Hey, man, have at it. That's why I do the Buick small block stuff, is because they're cheap. I can play with them. If you tear one up, guess what? No one's missing anything. Me personally, I'll probably just drag another one out of the weeds and start all over again. But that's why I like them.
You know, Jonathan Couchy's mentioning the SP2P intake and the runners being too small. I got to tell you, I would not mind having an SP2P in the 4-barrel for the van. I think it would be ideal for that.
That's the single plane?
Yeah, it's small port dual plane.
Okay, this is for a small block Dodge?
Small port 2 plane. Yeah, they make them. And
small port is where it's at if you want torque.
You know, I was stupid. I passed on one at Carlisle. They're cheap. Nobody wants them because you can't make huge power with them. But if you want something that's torquey down low and gets good gas mileage and all that, they're a good choice. I wouldn't mind having one for the van if I find one.
Yeah, your velocity would be super high all the time.
I'm thinking of doing that with about a 600 Holly. I think it would be ideal. The van gets 16 now. So what I'd like to do is add some power and see if I can keep that much gas mileage. I think I can do it.
All right, so Big Belly's saying, thanks, Dallas and John. Want to get back to work and wrenching. Well, there's no reason to be in a rush, man. Like I said, your health is the most important thing that you got, right? So get that ironed out and then get back at it. Jonathan Couchy says the SP2P intake is a joke, in my humble opinion. Runners are too small. That's the one you were talking about?
Yeah, it just depends what you want to do with it.
Right, and it's perfect because you're not going for 350 horsepower.
That's exactly right.
You're going for 400 plus foot-pounds of torque.
I think for the van and what I do with it, I think it's ideal. But it's not ideal for much.
Well, Craig Chitto saying he just got another fuel injection intake to chop up and go backwards 50 years. Put a carburetor on it, huh? Let's see. Mostly old parts and rust. Can't wait for next year's No Name Nationals.
We're going to see that. I think we'll see that Duster running in the 6s next year. That's my prediction.
Well, see, and here you go. Here's a testament from somebody who was there. Big Block 402. He was there. Steven was there the entire weekend. Even blew his motor up on Saturday?
Yeah.
And this is what he has to say about it. The energy in the air at No Name Nationals was unlike any I have felt at any racetrack. It was like a huge family. The trust factor was high. I'm telling you, it was, Deke Denny, which is our tech guy for the event, he told me, he said, it was a family reunion where a drag race broke out, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is 100% what it was. That is 100%. Everybody had such a good time. They liked being able to chat with the other channels and talk YouTube. They also like to be able to smack talk and go figure it out on the track, right? It was a good time.
For those who haven't seen it, this is a piece of piston ring out of Steven's engine right here.
Yeah, that was picked up at about the 500-foot mark on the track.
Yeah. That was a pretty big bang. Steven, that rod and piston is welcome back here on the wall of Kaboom.
Mr. Jonathan Couchy says, didn't Ford make a Ford Custom 300 1959 with a Paxton supercharger for the Y-Box? Yes, and you could actually get it on Thunderbird.
Yep.
Yeah, mostly old parts from same thing. And that's what we continue to see about the No Name Nationals, is that it was essentially like a family event, and everyone was happy to be there. There was literally like 4 sticks in the mud that caused a whole bunch of ruckus.
And none of them showed up.
Those guys didn't even show up.
None of them showed up. No, it was a great time.
Those
things are really heavy.
The weight of the 385 series kept me away from them for a long time. However, I'm finally starting to change my mind. I don't know. Ford, when you're talking Fords, I was always a fan of the small block Ford. Lightweight, compact, runs like a scalded dog. I mean, there's so many parts you can throw at it. It's great.
Yeah.
Let's see. The SP2P has worked great on mild small blocks. They build good torque. Yep. Uh-oh. Mostly old parts and rust is saying John Wilburn, it better be 650s or better for what I have planned. So
sounds good to me. Yeah, Patrick, I think Patrick's going to bring it next year.
Well, he was last week. Shane and I were talking about, what we would want to do, because he wants to match race me again. And wants me to bring my T-Bird, and he's going to bring his dart. We haven't done that, so we match raced last time in 2016, I think. And Patrick was trying to jump in there because we were fiddling around with trying to figure out what classes would be good that we could run in, or we could make up just to run for our cars, and he was trying to jump in all the classes.
Just make a match race. Just make a match race, negotiated, whatever.
Yeah, what I was looking at doing was like a 28-10-5. So if I'm going to be there and I'm already got the car loaded up and ready to go, I might as well jump in that 28-10-5 class.
Yeah. Three big areas, okay? Bracket, 28-10-5, and burnout competition. Three big areas. And I predict that each is going to get a little stouter next year. We're going to have the burnout. All 3 of them are going to be harder to win next year.
So Kent 51 Flatty said, how did John get to be, I don't know, that's not B, get to DF, the YouTube Automotive Godfather? He's on everyone's channel.
I guess he means I get around in a lot of lives, which I do when I can.
Yeah. Well, and it's essentially this community, right? Everybody that kind of circles around here, this community, is John is one of the regulars. Yeah, Colleen's right. Even Jed Scott, who had a smile on his face after grenading his transmission. And not only did it grenade, it actually broke the entire tail shaft housing, output shaft, and the input shaft of the transmission. The input shaft of the drive shaft off. The yoke of the drive shaft is split right down where that yoke lined up with the output shaft.
I was really surprised about that. I did not think that he would go down the track. I sure didn't think he'd go down the track in Jezebel. And not only did he do it, he did it 3 times, broke, and had a smile on his face when he did. I would never have predicted that, but I thought it was really cool. Jed seemed to have a good time. And here's a picture of Jed holding his broken output shaft in the station lanes.
Yeah, he was wanting to make a trophy out of it.
Yeah. Here, let's see. Here you go. This is what happened. See that? took the whole end off the transmission and output shaft and snapped right where the end of the yoke
So that's
is.
the input shaft there. Here's the tail shaft housing, and right there, that shiny piece is actually the end of the billet yoke from. I think that's a strange piece.
It's a strange yoke. Yep.
But it's split right there, which
Yep.
is just so weird because they usually don't do that. But I am assuming that's because that yoke is pretty brutal piece.
It was good parts. It just snapped, and it snapped instantly.
Well, and that was a Hemi transmission, right?
Yeah,
a Hemi 833.
It was out of a '67 GTX, I believe.
So Big Belly Racing asked, "What's the deal with the new small block Mopar 4-speed parts? Bulletproof bell housing and aftermarket shifters are non-existent."
I guess Passum Performance is the place to ask. I don't know. I've never had the luxury of building with any parts like that.
There's a dang it, I can't remember the guy's name. But the guy that runs the Southeast Gas or Superstock class, his name is Robert Peffley. Robert just sent his gearbox off, his 833, off to somebody that's the Mr. Mopar 833, and slick shifted it and all the whole 9 yards, right?
Passum.
It might have been. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's the guy I would contact.
If you got questions about that, Brewer Racing, who's in our community, they brought out a pair of B-bodies, the No Name Nationals. Those guys do a lot of stuff with 4-speed Mopars. They're good ones to ask.
And they were fast.
Oh, yeah.
So, Two Hacks Jeff is saying, I had an absolute blast. The Automotive Island of Misfit Toys is definitely my new family. Well, that's awesome, because I always thought you guys were family before, but when we all got together, it got to be even more fun.
Yeah. Good time. There's Jed. Look at that. We just summoned Jed.
What? You say his name and he shall appear?
Look at that. Yeah, Jed, I don't know if you caught. I guess you caught it, but I don't know if you caught it. We were showing your trophy that you created there.
Let's see. I'm trying to find. I must be way behind. Oh, there he is. Scott Speed Shop. I got like 10 minutes to hang. How's everyone doing? We're doing good, man. We were just John was just showing off your trophy from the No Name Nationals. So let's see here. Yeah, well, 318 Will Run was saying the weather was great at No Name Nationals, both travel and event. And you know what? Here is your winner. Well, was he runner? No, he was runner.
He was runner-up, but he and Joe had a gentleman's agreement before they ran the final to split the purse.
Well, and what's funny is 318 Will Run was murdering everybody with his van.
Yep.
And that just goes to show you it doesn't have to be the fastest car at the track to win a bracket event. That's why bracket racing is fair across the board, because it isn't dictated by how much you spent to go fast, right?
Yeah, Tim would get to half track in that van before Joe left. And I watched that race from the 660, and I couldn't tell who won at the stripe till I looked at the wind light.
Well, okay, so Doug Narn says Jezebel a speed parts killer. I'll tell you what was killer. That car looked like it was going to be on a serious pass, because he had walked around. He had made a couple passes before. Let's see. And then I was walking through the pits, and I noticed he was out there getting ready for another pass. And I said, hey, how much? I noticed this thing is either bogging or it's blowing the tires off. Either one, there's no in between. I asked him how much tire pressure you're running, and I can't remember what he said. Maybe 15 pounds, 18 pounds. I said, knock it down to like 12 and see what happens, because that's where the magic numbers normally at on a drag slick, anywhere from 10 to 15 pounds. It usually kind of falls right about 12, 13 pounds. But that car, the whole car lunged forward, and it only had a drive shaft for about a fraction of a second. And I'm pretty certain it was going to be on a pretty good pass.
I don't think that car moved an inch off the clutch.
It did. It lunged.
I got the video. We can watch the video.
Yeah, look at it. All it did was it lunged forward, and then it was making god-awful noises. So...
If I can find it. Here we go. We can watch it right here. Let's see what it did. in the far lane there.
It's not playing, John.
Is it not?
All right. Scott Speed Shop in the right lane. And that's
It did move. Yeah, it moved a few feet.
Yeah, it lunged pretty good. I was up in the tower, and it just made some horrendous noises. And then the car came to, like the motor revved, and it didn't move, and everybody kind of assumed it was a tranny. But when they pushed him backwards, it was like, what is that freaking noise? And it was
I thought it was a U-joint.
It was that whole entire tail shaft housing bouncing around, flopping around under the car.
It was like a mace. But Jed's saying that they think it was a forging inclusion when the output shaft was made. Had an inclusion in the forging, which created a stress riser to snap under load.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. It's a freak thing.
That thing, it did run pretty good, though. It had a lot of mile an hour at the top end, so it is making some steam.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. I mean, I think the time was only an 868, but if you look at the incrementals 330 and above, the car was moving, so it has a whole lot more left in it.
Well, it had a lot of top end on it, so that's telling you it's making some good horsepower.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just all of it was just the launch. He was trying to dial it in, and he said, "Hey, man, this is my first time taking this thing down the drag strip." Like, okay, have fun. There's a lot of people out here like that today.
You know what? That track, I mean, let's see, there were at least, that I can think of, at least 4 transmissions broke that weekend, at least 3 drive shafts. 3 drive shafts broke that weekend, 1 engine. There were some people running their stuff hard and breaking some stuff.
So, all right. NSB custom cars. I brought this up to a couple of people. Those narrow ass bridges were the only bad thing about No Name Nationals. All right.
Oh man.
And that is, Google Maps trying to take you to the track or whatever.
Yeah.
And I have been that way. And I told John this before, and I've done it myself. I've been to that track and I've taken my camper and I go down that bridge and you're just like, your butt is puckered for 3 miles, right? Because there's literally no room between you and a semi truck going the other way. Man. And so Barclay, which was the track operator, the manager that was there for the No Name Nationals, actually told me something pretty cool. He said, hey, instead of going up through Illinois and through those really narrow bridges, go straight south until you catch 55 to 155, and then that takes you over to Dyersburg, Tennessee, and then you take 412, and it's literally like a 4-lane road, and there's nothing on it. Except there may still be a steamroller on there. But so I'll throw this out there because I don't think this was ever said at the No Name Nationals. Me and John talked about it the first day because it's the craziest thing I ever seen. But the rest of the time we were just so dang busy. I don't think I told anyone. So when I went to the No Name Nationals, I was hauling my travel trailer there. So my wife and kids and I had a place to stay for 5 days because I was there. Actually, I was there for 7 days.
We were there almost a week.
Yeah, and I was on my way up there, and this little, 99 Dodge Dakota went flying by me around 70 miles an hour, and I was probably tooling around, say, 60. And that thing got about a quarter mile ahead of me, and I was just watching them, and all of a sudden, smoke everywhere. And I'm like, what in the world? And then I got up on what was going on, and what happened was this guy was going down the road, and a steamroller pulled out in front of him. A steamroller, no lie, like Austin Powers, steamroller pulled out in front of this dude, and he broadsided it at 70 miles an hour. And that steamroller didn't even move, but the front of that truck caved in 4 feet. So just thought that was interesting.
I know on that narrow bridge going down, I'm pretty sure that the left mirror of my van was over top of the edge of a trailer going on that bridge. It was that tight.
Yeah, well, see, even right here, Jed said he had an absolute killer time for sure.
Good.
And you know what? That was the whole idea of it,
Yep.
Let's see.
We did too. We were just really busy.
Yeah, I didn't get to spend hardly any time with anybody. I didn't. I was literally just talking to people as I was walking to my next destination that I needed to be at. Yeah, like 5 minutes before. Let's see. Tom Brown saying some years ago I went 5 rounds deep in the semifinals at our local Dickinson Drag Race Association 8th mile bracket races on a 1040 with my 79 two-wheel drive Toyota pickup until it broke out. That's what's great about bracket racing is that you can literally run whatever you want. So Jed said he's proudly displaying the AHRA stickers on my car and the poster in the shop. Dad and I are contemplating joining the AHRA to support the cars. Well, hey, thanks, man. There's nothing is mandatory, but I do appreciate it if you do join because it helps the whole thing go. But
the AHRA is the sanctioning body for us.
For the regular person, right? That's the whole idea.
If you have a Top Fuel funny car, there's another sanctioning body that may be the sanctioning body for you. But if you're not one of those 32 people and you're one of the other, 7.5 billion in the world, the AHRA is a sanctioning body for you.
Well, NSB Custom Car says we passed 3 semis on one bridge, pucker factor for sure. Man, next time, just when you come up and you get to Nashville area, before you get to Nashville, catch the 840, which is the bypass around Nashville. 840 west, and then go to 40, and it'll take you over to Jackson, Tennessee, and then you can catch that 410, or that 412, Highway 412. Literally the easiest, best drive that you're ever going to do. You cut Nashville out of the equation. You don't go to Paducah. No more poopy narrow bridges.
You don't get to Illinois at all that way, do you?
What's that?
You don't do Illinois that way at all, do you?
No.
You don't go through Illinois when you go that way, do you?
Nope. And then that way you save yourself on a pile of money for gas in Illinois. So let's see.
Thanks for putting up the leak, Blake.
Tom Brown is going to bring his El Special Buick El Camino to next year's No Name Nationals. And you got to see what he's working on. It's like a 64 El Camino that he's putting a Buick Skylark sheet metal on and making a Buick Skylark El Camino. Right? So NSB Custom Cars. We got our black shirts and had an epic time. I just remember the day you guys rolled in, and I said, "Hey, how's it going?" You're like, "Oh, we got about 8 to 10 inches of water in our living room." I'm like, "What are you doing here?"
It still came on.
And he said, "What the hell else am I going to do? I mean, I can't do anything at home, right? There's no power, there's no water, there's no AC. Like, we'd rather be here." Okay.
I think they said that it was loading the cars into the trailer is what saved them from the floodwaters because it got the cars up enough to get them out of the water.
Well, that Harley dealership there in New Smyrna Beach, they had pictures up on Facebook the other day, and it was like 4 feet underwater.
Ooh,
right. So, there's Fab Race Mod Repair AHR all the way. You guys know it. I mean, and Chris is very biased because Chris operates an AHRA track.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Hank Reardon. Dallas, are you going to hold any AHRA events near Pennsylvania? No, I do not have a track in Pennsylvania. When I do, though, I will hold some events there in Pennsylvania area. So if you know somebody that has a track in Pennsylvania and they don't like what's going on with the WDRA and the IHRA right now, and they definitely don't want to be NHRA, tell them give me a call. Because like John said, it's the sanctioning body for the rest of us. It's the regular person, right? Let's see.
I see Andy Wood is in the house.
So Jonathan Couchy wants to do Ultimate Obscure American V8 Shootout. AMC 250, International 266, and Studebaker 259. I don't know if you'd actually have enough people to even have a shootout. You might just have a shoot. Right? There's probably not a lot of them left on the road. Well, especially that would go down a drag strip. But let's see. NSB Custom Car says, my brother's the big hero. Is supposed to fly up to, oh, that's right, for No Name Nationals and got canceled.
Yeah, that's right.
Behind it took care of the fort. Yeah, that's right. Did you guys get him a shirt? You should have got him a shirt.
You know what? If you want to get him a shirt, just holler at me. Let me know. We'll fix that.
Yeah.
We're actually working. I corresponded a little bit with Ben Schultz today. We're working on the Etsy link for shirts. But in the meantime, Lee, just shoot me a text or whatever, and we'll take care of him.
Jed's out. So I'll see you later, Jed.
Later, Mr. Jed.
Get that tranny fixed up so we can get her ready for No Name Nationals 2023.
That's right.
You only got like 360 days to go.
Well, whatever it is, yeah. When the number appears back here, you'll know.
Oh, you're right. All hot rides allowed. We've been saying that for well, essentially since I brought it back. A lot of people don't get that. Let's see. Oh, that's right. Andy is in Detroit, right?
Yeah.
He's up in Detroit. My internet is really bad up here. It probably is getting mugged on the way to your phone.
Yeah.
That's what happens in Detroit. A lot of mugging. Well, I don't know. It used to be the murder capital of the world, didn't it? Or the United States or something?
I don't know. It's DC, Detroit, Chicago, they all compete.
New Orleans is in there for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Before this timeout says have decided on a location. No, we haven't decided on a location, but the focus right now is to have it at the same place we had it this year.
It depends. We got to wait a couple of weeks to see what shakes out because the ownership of the track and sanctioning and these things are kind of up in the air. We'll have an update for you here in a few weeks. We want to announce it no later than New Year's Eve.
So, and contrary to the rumors flying around here on YouTube from other channels. Oh, my
gosh.
Right? But Larry Jeffers bought the IHRA, and he owns the track as well. And it's an AHRA track. He would almost look kind of dumb keeping an AHRA track and running the IHRA, right? I don't blame him for not wanting to do it. He owns his own sanctioning body. But he owns that sanctioning body and that track. He has nothing to do with my sanctioning body except for I sanction his track. That's it. And so he doesn't own the AHRA, so that guy can go ahead and squash his own rumors.
There are some interesting things. I read one of the trolls today said, he said, the event was a bust. I'm sure they won't have another one, and thumbs up. That was his comment. I'm like, first of all, we don't know this guy from anybody. I have no idea why he would wish the event ill. Second of all, there's a 100% chance that we are going to run the event again in 2023. Also, what bust? Dallas got the numbers. I was sitting there with you in the tower and said this is the best gate they've had in the 5 years it's been an AHRA track. The difference is because being the YouTube content creators, there was a massive amount of will call and the ticket sales to gate. Everybody except the locals went into the pits to hang out with the content creators. So everybody in the stands were the regulars, the locals. Everybody else was in the pits. It was actually a good gate. But anyway, there's all kinds of stuff.
Idea that it was a bust.
Yeah, you'll read stuff on those troll channels. It's absolutely untrue. They say it won't happen again. We'll just watch. They'll say a lot of things, but it will happen again. It will be bigger next year. We did have a good gate. It was a good event. The track did very well on it. I know that was another thing. But anyway, the trolls decided it was a failure before the event ever happened. And we all know better. Especially everybody.
They had their own seating, and they didn't even show up to sit in it to watch it fail, right?
It was a very successful event, and next year will be even bigger. I will say, for you guys who want to participate, start working on getting those 500 subs now.
Yeah,
at least
know if the number's going to be 500, but it will never be less than
right.
that.
Right.
So, well, here we go. So, Jonathan Couch. Also, can we have it in late July? No. The whole idea was us. All right, the later in September you can go, the better the weather generally is. And everyone that was there can attest to they've probably never had better weather at a track strip. It was fantastic weather. The other thing is, you got to remember, these guys are not racers. Not like in the sense of where you're out there every weekend, like a weekend bracket racer, right? You put them in a car where it's 105 degrees inside the car, and they're not going to want to do No Name Nationals ever again.
Well, the big thing is you say college starts. If you're a college student, hopefully you won't be a student in a few years. This event will keep going. And yes, everybody did clean up their trash. And Tim says, why acknowledge the trolls? I guess the only reason to mention them is that there was a whole bunch of new, really silly rumors today. Which will make sure that, nobody thinks there's any merit to them at all.
And well, so Danny Boyd says, Junkyard Nationals, that was the joke running around on the Cabral channel, the Junkyard Nationals. What's funny is, out of all the cars, the junk piles that were going down the track,
there
literally was one blown up engine and I don't know what, 2 drive shafts broken, one of them twice.
Right.
And then Jed's blew up the output shaft of Jezebel, right?
Yeah.
That was literally the entire and I don't know how there was guys like, okay, Duddy had put that dart together. How many passes did that dart make before it even went down the track? 0.
Duddy fired it up, drove to the end of the driveway, put it on the trailer, and came to the track. That is all of the test that car had. It
didn't leak. It didn't break.
Nothing.
It didn't die.
Ran 18s all day.
And what he means by 18s is it ran 8.teen seconds,
Yeah, right. Which is just amazing. Which is he didn't even get, that car wasn't anywhere near looking like it was going to be done 4 days before the event. Not only did he get it done, he had all of a couple hundred yards of testing on it on the trailer to the event, and it ran all weekend and never broke or anything.
So NSB Custom Cars is saying racing in 100-degree weather sucks, and these guys would know because they're from Florida, right? And this is like what it's like there right now is 100 degrees.
Well, they have 100-degree weather, but they also have an insane amount of humidity.
Yeah. So I'm wondering this though, NSB Custom Cars. What did you think about the weather at the end of September, early October at Jefferson?
It was nice. So here's another thing. I know that having it in the summer, on the one hand, is before school starts. On the other hand, you're competing with everybody else and every other event and the weather and everything else. So it's all a compromise, trying to figure out what's the best.
And here's Blake from Bad Tree.
Yep.
A-Body Alley was making laps, and Blake would know it because Blake ran more test and tune passes than anybody else out there probably combined.
Yeah, probably. But they don't have the tally on the test and tune, but yeah, he made a lot of passes. Those guys really put on a show. They really performed, all of them, the whole Bad Tree bunch. So good stuff.
Yeah,
NSB says the weather was perfect.
Yep.
Big Block 402 says my neck is still burnt. Dallas and I, we got weather beaten out there.
Oh man, my lips were split open like from the corner of my mouth all the way across, right? And it was like the sun, the wind, the lack of fluids, all together.
Yeah, we were pretty beat up. Go all day and didn't half eat and dehydrated, and we were really working hard out there. A little too hard, actually.
Yeah, well, and you know what? We're just going to do it all over again in 2023. So,
but we're going to improve a lot of little things, and not just things that we needed to improve, but actually make some things better. You'll see.
Next year, we're going to have 2 Dizzy Izzy's doing a burnout contest.
We got plenty of things that we're going to do for next year. Don't worry about that. Just be working on getting your subs. You're going to need at least 500 and get your cars together. That's the thing. Be thinking about it. See, right now you can plan. You can plan your winter projects, your spring.
So here you go. Patrick saying, most of the parts and rust, 16 passes in the slow duster, banging the rev limiter on the last 3 passes.
Yeah.
This duster literally was running round robins around the track. I mean, it was pass after pass after pass, and he was in every class, every event. He beat on that. That was what was that, a turbocharged 318 in there?
Yeah. Junkyard 5.2 Magnum with a turbo. Big Block 402 is talking about the carb toss. Here's the deal. With Vizard not being able to make it, it's just more manpower we didn't have. We were already short-staffed, at least 4 or 5 people. So that was something we couldn't do. We'll do that with Vizard next year. Fingers crossed. Hope his health is right, but that's what we really need.
Yeah, and I brought it.
Yeah.
You know what carb you guys were going to toss? If you've ever seen the Mr. Rotter's Neighborhood where I rebuild the Stage 1, where I take a Stage 1 Buick carburetor apart, and it was the Holy Grail carburetor, Stage 1 Buick, right? And go watch the video if you haven't seen it. But I have one that's called the Stage 1 Stunt Double. And as soon as you watch the video, you'll know you guys were going to toss that carburetor. I had it in my truck. We just didn't have people to do it.
We needed more manpower, and next year we're going to make sure we have that. It was kind of a freak thing what happened with the track staff this year. Had nothing to do with our event, but we'll work on it.
So Kent 51 Flatty says, do you have a quarter-mile track? I do not. I do not have a quarter-mile track.
He says, do you have to have a quarter-mile track? No. Jeffers
Oh,
is
no. No, all I have is 8th-mile tracks right now. So,
8th is good racing. Thank you.
Yeah, well, Chris, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Wendy English says, my lips are still healing. Not next year. It won't happen to me. I got meds for that. So, yeah, it was rough. If it wasn't the sun getting you, it was the wind. And it wasn't really super windy. It just was relentless. Let's see, the day before everyone showed up, you know, the big banner that was like directly as you were coming in the gate off to the right.
Oh gosh.
John and I tried to hang that from 2 telephone lines or from 2 telephone poles. And we got half of it hung. And then that sucker was whipping around and flailing all over the place and pulling me out of the basket on the JLG lift. And it was a mess. It was scary. Yeah, that's me putting it up.
There you go. Dallas loves getting up high in that basket too. I can't tell you how much he likes doing that.
I love it a ton. Let's see. Danny Boyd says, how about broadcasting capability? You mentioned that and that you would be doing something different for next year.
We've got several things. So I talked to my guy that ran live streams this year. We did the best we could do. It was kind of an experiment to see how much bandwidth we would have and how much signal we would have. So we've got things we're going to do for next year. I think you're going to like it. We've already figured out exactly what we need to do. So you're going to have something better next year. You'll see.
This year we intended to. All right. So the way it was supposed to work was John and I were supposed to walk around and do pit reporting at these pits and ask them questions and how they like it and this and that. And we, no lie, got absolutely smashed when we walked in the gate on Friday. And it wasn't for the racers. It wasn't the racers smashing us. It was the track staff like, hey, we literally got to run the biggest race we've had here in 4 years with 4 people.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, that sucks.
It was tough in that regard, but we pulled it off. But I know that next year we want to fix that. Dallas and I want to do pit reporting, some stuff like that. I'm also going to – so every single thing at that event, I've taken notes, and I'm going to make it better for next year. Everything.
Oh, yeah. So NSB Custom Cars, it seemed to work good at our trailer. Oh, he's talking about the internet.
Yeah, but also that wasn't just for like spectators either. We wanted everybody to have bandwidth.
Right, and we wanted all the YouTube content creators to have the ability to upload and download video, right?
Yep.
And it worked good at your trailer because remember I put the signal on your trailer. Yeah. I put the deco on your trailer. And a lot of people didn't know the password because I had the password, and originally I was handing it out. And then when we got slammed with having to work all the stuff, man, I did not have time to talk to people about the password. I was hoping people would share it around.
Jody Calhoun's asking, can people help out? Yeah, we have plenty of people to help out with different things, but the biggest thing is we need some dedicated track staff for next year, and we're gonna work on that. We're gonna fix that because you don't know till you run the first one. That's just the way it works.
Right, exactly, and that's exactly what hook, line, and fishing saying it was a tryout run. Now you know.
Yeah.
So, like what we're talking about next year is we'd essentially just lease the place and then bring all of our own people in. So you know you're going to have the people for the event.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. The big thing is the track almost certainly is not going to be in the middle of the owner buying a sanctioning body in the middle of the season. I mean, what are the odds of that anyway, right?
I mean, there's only 3 sanctioning bodies. And
I mean,
how
this
often
is
they
the
change
only
hands.
track. This is the only track in the entire country this happened to this year, and the only time it was happening. So, I mean, you know, it's a needle in a haystack kind of thing. But we're working through it, and we'll let you know. Just know that next year is going to be great. I mean, this year was great, and next year we're only going to work out the bugs, and we're going to have a lot more people there. I'm certain of that.
Oh, well, look at this. And it's because some cars is saying gotta give it up to Predator generators. That thing ran the whole time on about 6 gallons of gas. Well, that's not bad at all. I mean, if you were out there for the full 3 days, I'm assuming 8 hours a day, 24 hours, 6 gallons. That's 4 hours per gallon.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
Danny Boyd says you don't even need to make any mistakes to learn and apply. Well, I mean, the big thing is whatever you do, you want to figure out how to do it better, and look at it and say, hey, I could have done this or that, and the whole thing is to give you guys the best possible stage, and we only want to strive to do even better at that next year.
Yeah, this was, as John said it before, this was our dream event. John and I were dreaming up our dream event. What event would we like to be at?
Yeah.
And what would they have, right? And that's what we came up with for you guys. And it actually, for us, it was a fun weekend. But, I mean, it sucked because we got to watch everybody else race in the race that we always wanted to race in.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what we kept saying from, like, January on, like, man, this is going to be one awesome race. I wish we could race in it.
Yeah.
Oh, man, look at this.
Hey, Professor P is back.
Yeah, man, what a pain, man. That was ridiculous.
So what'd you do? You go outside and just hook it up to the Cummins truck?
No. Basically, I was sitting here, and then you probably see it in the last, but there was a flash, and the light went bright over here, and I looked, and then everything went dead. And, man, that was something crazy. So,
yeah, you didn't have this kind of weather out in SoCal.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
No,
I remember
not at all.
one time I was out there and going to school for the Navy, and there was a thunderstorm came through, and guys were like, "Holy cow, it's thunderstorming!" Like, oh yeah, you guys don't get these? Oh no, never. You know. And then the entire time I was there, I don't think it ever thunderstormed again.
No. Well, the only time it ever thunderstorms in SoCal is when the is like in September, November, when the monsoons will jump the mountain. That's the only time you really get anything like this.
Huh.
So, man, it was a bummer because, man, I was into it today. Man, I saw all the chat, all the questions coming through.
Well, did you see the one that Tom Brown was asking me? What was the profile of the Mr. Rotter's Neighborhood BMF camshaft?
Ooh.
And I pulled up. I had something to kind of give me a frame of reference.
Mm-hmm.
Can you remember what the lift was on that?
It was 475 is exactly what you wanted. So it's going to be 475 at the valve.
I thought it was 485. Okay.
No,
and then you said the duration is 225 on the intake and 232 on the exhaust, right?
That's correct.
On a 110 LSA.
That's correct. And you're going to install that on a 106 or thereabouts, 106, 108, either one. It's not really going to make much of a difference. That thing's such a big cubic inch, it won't make any difference. But here's the difference is that the area under the curve is so much greater. And that's the whole reason why the advertised where the blowdown is going to happen on the camshaft is going to be nearly identical to what the other camshaft was. But this one, ramps in so much faster and has so much more 200 and 300 dwell as far as how fast it's going in, that it's going to run exactly the same, but it's just going to have so much more power and potential. It's just going to be a lot of people call it like throttle density, what they're going to feel in their foot or seat of the pants. It's just going to be a lot more there.
I can't wait to see how it actually performs.
It's going to be awesome.
I know this guy's going to be ecstatic as soon as he starts it up and it's choppy, and then you whack the throttle on it and it freaking revs like a top fueler.
Yeah, and it's not going to be crazy out of control choppy. You're still going to be up in the the 12, maybe about 17 to 15. Let's call it, inch-pounds of vacuum. But because it's such a big cubic inch engine, and the 110 is not out of control, so it's definitely going to have a note to it. It's going to be a healthy, drivable muscle car.
Right, and that was the whole idea. Was this guy's got a '69 Wildcat, and we wanted to have it had to run the power brakes. AC had to run in an idle, right?
That's right.
At a stoplight in gear. The whole idea was for it to be running, functional, but yet have a little bit of tooth to it.
Exactly, and that's exactly what it's going to do. And in fact, when you see, did you notice how the lobes look slightly different? I mean, it's hard to tell when it's a flat tappet, obviously, but there's so much dwell inside there that you're just going to be you're going to be stoked with it. In fact, yeah, the BMF is going to definitely live up to its name as far as street drivability.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea was. I mean, gosh, I guess naming it the BMF probably wasn't the best thing because people are going to assume that it's like a freaking top fueler camshaft. But the whole idea was it's the best of both worlds. You're getting street drivability. Yep. You're getting all the torque that the Buick's known for, and you're going to have all that upper RPM horsepower that you're used to when you throw a camshaft in something.
And the thing about it too is that I was able to do exactly how I wanted to do it because I was doing it for you, and it's the way that this is what I would put in my car, and when I do it for other people, it's kind of like, this is what you're looking for, this is how I would do it, but this is going to be better for what you're looking for. This right here is exactly how it would make this camshaft for me. So
Sweet.
You're going to be stoked.
Well, and here's Tom Brown was asking that question earlier. He says, "Thanks for the info, Shane. What will the Buick Cam need for springs?"
It's going to be as far as light spring pressures. What does stock come on those things? Seat, what is it? 90 pounds on the seat?
Oh, they're light. Yeah, they're light. I'm not entirely sure what is at the top of my head. I don't remember.
Anywhere between, let's just call it, say, about 120, maybe on the seat as far as spring pressure. As far as over the nose, you're not going to RPM that thing anything. So,
so that cam. All right. So spring wise, if you buy a spring kit, you do not need a dual spring for this. This is something where you could get away with buying like a stage 1 knockoff spring and run around this camshaft.
Exactly. And since it's only 475 lift on this thing, you can usually take the stock valve springs because they're usually about 100 to 150 thousandths. Yeah, exactly. And just shim them. So that way you can kind of get your...
Yeah. You know what? I remember we put it at 475 lift wise because the idea was to keep it to where you wouldn't have any guide issues where you had to cut the guides down, right? So you don't have any interference between the retainer and the guide. That's
correct. So that way you can put this right in your stock Buick and it'll work. And then just check your pop a spring off and then just check your retainer to guide clearance. As long as you have about 100 thousandths there, man, you're going to be golden.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah
I can't wait to. I mean, the only problem is I had to provide a core, and the core was it was a really pricey, expensive TA cam, but it had been gacked. I mean, it literally was going in the trash. Don't start screaming at me or nothing.
Yeah.
But it was going in the trash because one of the lobes got nicked really hard with say a rod bolt, and it really did a number on it.
Yeah.
So it was like, this thing's going in the trash. I said, well, hey, how big is it? And the guy says, I think it's a 292S, which is or 294S. It's a big solid piece. Let me see what there is here.
Is the cam for this guy Tom Brown? Is that him?
He was actually asking about. Oh no, he was just asking about it because he thought it was interesting that I was having this. I got this camshaft made that I was calling the BMF, and he wanted to know the profile of it. And I told him I was putting it at 430. So this was
Yeah.
this was a TA solid cam. I think it's a 308 solid, or is there a 292 solid? I thought it was a 292.
Yeah, it was like 250 something duration at 50. It was a massive deal, And I definitely did it exactly how I wanted to do it. I mean, that thing's been nitrided. That thing's going to be, I mean, it's everything that you'd want to do, So
Well, Tom, I tell you what, see if you can find yourself like a 308S, like a TA 308S, and that way it's got. I just looked at it like I wanted a camshaft that was biggest bastard I get, because you can always cut them down.
yeah, that's
You
right.
can't add any more to it, right?
It's very hard to.
So the idea was find something big to begin with, and when this guy offered this up, I'm like, oh, this is perfect, because I'm just going to get something that has a little bit of chop, but yet the street functionality was the most important thing. This was a Wildcat, had to have power brakes that ran off a vacuum. It had to have AC, because I mean, who would have a Wildcat and not have their AC on there? That was the whole point. Yeah. And this, Shane and I talked about it, and I'm like, hey, this is, I think probably the best idea would be a compromise between these profiles here. And he was like, yeah, I get what you mean. And then a week later came back and said, hey, this is what I got. And I'm like, oh man, this is going to be bitching.
Yeah. Well, I did all the cams for TA Performance when I was at the other cam company. And so there's a lot. I mean, he does the profiles. I put a lot of heart and soul into those things, but he was looking for something specific. He wants it so that way the average Joe can put these in. He's looking for quiet. They want performance and quiet. And that's kind of what's funny about this, is that I got my introduced to Buicks long before I even knew Dallas was into them. In fact, when Dallas first moved out here to Tennessee, he had like this plethora of Buicks, and he would always tell me, man, I got this 455 I'm working on. Man, I got this and I got that working on. And then it was just funny that, I started making all these cams for TA, and I kept telling Dallas, I was like, man, I'm starting to learn about these things, man. I know what they need. And then so it's funny how that all came together for this thing. And now it's like total confidence on making a camshaft that's just really going to just thump.
And so the reason why I did this is because you can't get a cam core.
No.
Okay? Cam cores are like impossible to come by.
Right now they are, yeah.
So when I got this big camshaft, that's when I started calling, called Shane, hey man, I got this big solid piece. Can we cut it down? Yeah. And then so he started talking to the guys at Comp where he works, right? He works at that group, Edelbrock group.
The Edelbrock group. So I'm involved in everything there.
Right. And they're like, you know what? This may be the way that things are going to go from this point forward. Since you can't get a camshaft, this is what people are going to end up doing.
Yeah.
Right. And so this camshaft was kind of like I guess everybody was kind of throwing in to see how this would work out. Right.
Yeah. And the one thing about it too is that it's easier to bring a cam smaller. It's much harder to go larger with a cam. There's restrictions to go as far as bigger. You really can only go about 10 thousandths as far as lift at the camshaft, which equals to about maybe 15 or 20 as far as lift. As far as duration, you can usually go up by about 10 degrees or so, depending on your profile of the cam, and you can usually change the LSA by about 2 degrees. Now, obviously, you combine all three of those factors. Some you're going to be able to do more than others, but the camshaft, once it's profiled, tells you what you can and can't do to it. That's why I do that. So that's why I like, because to move things, you got to rob a little bit of Paul to pay Peter, but then you're changing on the backside, and there's only so much heat treating that goes through on those cast iron cores. And that's another reason why I tried them too, because that helps out, makes it as hard as nails after that.
Well, Dakota's timeout saying, if you have a retainer to guide clearance issue, are you going to know it? The cam in my 455 has 500 lift, and they say you don't want to run more than about 480 lift. It runs pretty good. Yeah, you might know it. Okay.
You would know by now. You definitely would know by now.
Well, you would have. Okay, so if it's a hydraulic flat tappet cam, or even just a hydraulic cam, you can open that up to where the guide and the retainer kind of come into contact. And as long as you're not exceeding how much you can plunge that push rod down into the lifter, you'll probably never notice it. But you're only talking 30,000s at that point, right?
Yeah, but it'll take out the camshaft because the when it goes
It'll
over
wipe.
the nose,
Oh yeah.
when it goes, was that?
Oh yeah, it'll wipe it. There's so much weight on it.
Yeah, when it goes over the nose, that's the most critical part because it's essentially stopping and that lifter is rotating just basically on the corner. So if it touches at all, I mean, that is the hardest point at any point to go over that nose. And so if it touches even a little bit, and that's the reason why, like on a lot of the performance ones, they only tell you to put like 20,000s of preload into them, so that way you don't get all the pump up. Ideally, you want to be about halfway through the stroke as far as for quiet, but that's the reason why a lot of performance guys will only put 20,000s of preload into it, so that way they don't pump up and start hanging the valve open.
Well, here's something. It's an interesting question. Question: is there a way to tell if parts are properly heat treated? If not, is there a way to do it at home? Kiln, pizza oven, they can hit 900 to 1,000 degrees.
No, there's really no way. Most of the camshafts are going to be they're going to be heat treated correctly 99% of the time. There's going to obviously be anomalies, but there's really no way to do it. You can actually check it with a Rockwell. You can do a file test. There's many different things that you can do at home to test it, but you're not really going to know exactly like, hey, that is 55 or that's 60 Rockwell. This is impossible. But you can usually take a file and kind of hit it, and if a file doesn't do it,
well, yeah, I was going to say, generally when you're testing for Rockwell on a machine surface, you're going to ruin the machine surface.
That's correct.
So
exactly. So you're going to dent it, and you're done. You know, a lot of people, what they'll do is that most people aren't running like, say, you know, what's that mechanical cam? I can't even see that fuel pump anymore. So you can usually test on that, and that will tell you the Rockwell right off the bat from that way, because most people just run electric pump anyways nowadays, it seems like.
Well, Mayhem Motorsports is asking, y'all know anybody that resurfaces flat tappet lifters?
It's not worth it anymore. There used to be a lot of companies out there that did that, but it's just not worth it anymore because getting the crown correct is so hard. It's nearly impossible. You know, as far as, I shouldn't use the word impossible. There are companies that do it, but it is so expensive nowadays that it's just worth it to get another set of lifters.
But with the availability of lifters being minimal,
yes,
wouldn't this make this much more of a feasible thing then?
It does make sense to some people for some of their setups. Like if you're running, like, say, a really arbitrary type of lifter where there's a certain, you know, as far as the seat height from the lobe, then yes. But or if you have like some sort of billet one, you know, there's the other company I used to work for, we used to have a lot of billet lifters for lightweight, for like circle track racing. A lot of circle trackers will polish them and whatnot, but for the average Joe, you know, you're looking at $300 to $400 usually is what it was going before. And, you know, and then they would heat treat them and then make them, you know, as far as like, remember the old Delphi style lifters, how they had that little puck that was on the bottom? It almost would come out something like that, but it's just, for the average Joe, it's just not really worth it. For the racer, yeah, you know, because they run through these things so much and they spend the money right up front.
Tom Brown's asking, what steel are most billet cam cores made from?
Well, there's two. You know, you can either have an 8620, which is going to be your standard yellow copper core that you're going to see. That's for the heat treating process. And then you have the 5051s, 5051s, I'm sorry. And that's going to look like it where it's silver. Now, there's pros and cons to both of them, but usually you can get the second one for much cheaper than the copper core ones. The copper core can always be reheat treated, where the other one's going to have to be induction hardened. But then once you start induction hardened lobe after lobe after lobe, it's going to basically, you know, turn into a pretzel, and you're going to have to get it straight again. Really, for most performance ones, that's why you see a lot of the copper cores going to that. But now that I'm over at Comp, you know, a lot of the induction hardened cams work really well, especially on the Hemis, and it's an inexpensive way. It's a lot cheaper.
Well, hey,
to do it that way.
I hate to cut you short. We literally have 50 seconds left, and Blake is having a video come out that's a premiere at 9 o'clock. I want to thank Shane for being here twice, in between being electrocuted. I want to thank John for jumping in here when Shane got electrocuted.
It was
Yeah.
fun.
I want to thank all the mods, so Blake and John, and I want to thank all of our audience for jumping in here and asking questions and having a good time tonight. I'm sorry that things went sideways, but hey, you just roll with it, right? I mean,
was
that's
a
how the whole
blast.
entire No Name Nationals was.
Yeah, well, real quick, if I didn't get to one of your questions, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. Once again, that's slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. I did have a couple questions real quick that I'll go through. Clayton was asking me, I basically gave him about his performer RPM. He was asking about fuel pressure and regulators and dead end on that in a 3/8 line. And he's looking for something that goes in his 331 as far as, what he's looking for. Any real electric pump you really don't need for this setup. Just run the mechanical pump. It'll save you so much time and money. And then another guy was race mod repeat. Just tell him I'll get to his answer. Since we're over time right now, I'll get to his answer and I'll just send him the answer via email.
All right. Well, we will see you guys next Wednesday. Enjoy that Bad Tree Productions premiere. We're
Right
out.
on.